Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Thursday. I hope the day is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. Thank you, as always, for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Interesting morning today. Woke up, brushing my teeth, looking at my phone. Suddenly this Greek wonder kid is all over my timeline. Konstantinos Karetsas. I hope I got that pronunciation sort of right. I have looked it up in terms of how you're supposed to pronounce it, because I know you all like to call me up on my mispronunciations. But yeah, he was suddenly all over my timeline. Like, where's this come from? Went to bed last night, there was nothing. I hadn't heard anything myself. Obviously, nothing last night. Last time I looked at my phone, then this morning he's everywhere. So we're going to talk about that in today's show. Strong reports linking him with Arsenal. 45 million euros, about 38 million pounds all in for a 17-year-old who plays in the same position seemingly as Ethan Nwaneri and Max Dowman. But we will talk about that, of course, because it's a very interesting report. I have got some sort of messages in about it, and because I'm recording this early today and because I've only just sort of found out about it, don't really have any information of it myself, just to flag that up early, but I will give my thoughts on it. And I'm recording Inside Arsenal Extra Time later on today with James Bench. We're going to be doing our end of season awards, all that sort of stuff. And if I've got any sort of more firm clarity on this report, I will certainly bring it to you in that show, but still worth discussing today. Going to be speaking about the players who were released yesterday. Arsenal confirming 20 exits across all the teams. And the players that they're still in contract talks with. Got lots of questions and comments from you guys as well. The internationals start tonight with Spain versus France in terms of an Arsenal point of view. Mikel Merino, David Raya involved in that one. Nico Williams, Martin Zubimendi as well. So Arsenal transfer targets involved in that game as well. So probably worth keeping an eye on. No William Saliba, of course, for France because of that injury that ruled him out of the game against Southampton at the end of the season. Right, let's talk about this then, shall we? If you haven't seen it yet, I'm sure you probably have, because if your timeline's like me, full of Arsenal related stuff, then it's pretty much impossible not to have seen his name today, because it is absolutely everywhere. Konstantinos Karetsas, 17-year-old Greek young superstar, being linked heavily with a move to Arsenal, according to AMN news agency, or APMP, which is based over here in England. It's been very much picked up in Greece as well, that Arsenal are close to an agreement with the Belgian team, Genk, that will reach 45 million euros plus some goal and appearance bonuses. Key point, however, is the fact that Arsenal intends to leave Karetsas on loan to Genk for another year after closing the transfer. Now, he's been heavily linked with lots and lots of teams in the last sort of 6 months or so. Really, sort of specifically, Bayern Munich are said to be very, very interested in getting him. But this report says that it is now Arsenal who have taken the lead in inquiring him. They're in advanced discussions with Genk. Interesting one. Obviously, hugely talented young player. You know, Greece have got so many of them right now. Their squad is very, very young, full of real talent. Anyone who watched the Greece-Scotland game recently and saw Karetsas sort of make his major breakthrough on the international scene, it's impossible not to be excited by the sort of football that this young Greek team play. And he's, you know, one of the absolute young stars of that team. So really, really exciting. As I said, I've got sort of messages out at the moment trying to sort of confirm the validity of these reports, and I'm still waiting to hear back on some of those. So we'll wait and see what I get from that. There's sort of immediate red flags that jump out at me on this one, though, and there are a few, I have to say, and I'm not doubting the reporting. So, you know, I don't know yet, so I'll have to wait and see. So I'm not doubting the reporting, but I just look at it and there's sort of me thinking about it with my Arsenal hat on. Really talented young player, teenager, plays off the right, left-footed, loves to cut in on his left, brilliant sort of shots into the far corner. And then I'm looking at Arsenal's squad and I'm thinking, Ethan Nwaneri, we're desperately trying to find space to make sure he gets the meaningful minutes he needs to continue to develop. And then you've got Max Dowman coming through, who we know is going to be sort of promoted to around the first team squad next season. Probably won't play too much, but is going to need some minutes as Arsenal try to convince him to sign a new contract and keep him out of the clutches of all of Europe's top clubs. And then there's this guy, Karetsas, who seems to play basically in the exact same position Sorry, I'm just getting a message on my phone. I was just checking to make sure. I felt very Sky Sport News fake messages type stuff that they used to do on transfer deadline day, but it was actually a message coming in. But it wasn't from any of the people that I'd sent messages out about this transfer to. It was from my dad, giving me his Wordle results for the morning. So not really something to stop the press for. So yeah, you kind of look at it squad building point of view, which at the moment is all I can do because I haven't had any sort of information on it myself yet, and just think it doesn't make too much sense to me. Obviously, you want the best young talent in the world at your club, but when you've got two real prodigiously talented young teenagers who seem to play already in the exact same role that Karetsas plays in, does it make much sense? I have to say no. Does it also, in a summer where you've got to really sort of improve your attack, does spending or committing to spend up to 45 million euros on a player that you're going to send back on loan to Belgium for another season make too much sense? Again, potentially no. So that's just my immediate sort of first thought on it with my Arsenal hat on, without having received back any information on it myself. So again, I'm not doubting the reporting. I wouldn't do that. Whoever, this report has obviously come from some well-sourced information. They say that themselves in their report, who are probably very, very close to the Karetsas camp and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. But at the moment, I've got a few red flags up over it. We'll wait and see what I get back from it. What other, I'm sure the rest of the Arsenal press pack over here are chasing this now, given the strength of this report. So we'll wait and see if anyone else gets some sort of firm stance on it for now. Very exciting young player, no doubt about it. I'm not doubting that. But I just do wonder, when Arsenal basically have two of their own who play in the exact same position of a very similar age, who are already trying to find minutes for and a pathway for, does this one make sense? Not particularly, but let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Like I said, myself and James Ben just sitting down a little bit later on today to record Inside Arsenal Extra Time. I'm sure we'll probably discuss it on that as well. So any sort of comments you have on it, let me know, pull them together and get them included in some of them in Extra Time, maybe in tomorrow's show as well. Right, moving on to the players who are leaving Arsenal. Arsenal sort of confirmed their release list yesterday. 20 players across the sort of youth teams, the senior side and the women's team as well. Obviously, the sort of standout names there: Kieran Tierney, Raheem Sterling, Neto, all leaving. Jorginho, we obviously expected that. Some of the younger players: Jack Henry Francis, Jimmy Gower, Kayan Edwards, Nathan Butler-Adeji. Players who were in and around the first team picture for the second half of the season due to the injuries. The two brothers, isn't it? The Salaradines, they've both gone. So those sort of players who are in and around the first team pictures. I mean, I had a question here from Aurora Freaks. Says, hi, Charles. We've seen a lot of younger players get released yesterday, and some with big potential like Salah, Butler, and Edwards. Do you think there is a problem in the academy which won't make with players who won't make the first team squad? I think we should be better in this department, as it would have been a good spot to earn more money. This could happen with better loans and sell them after that. For example, the same thing with City and Chelsea are doing with their youngsters. Yeah, we had Berta and Balogun, but not much more. And I think that's a good point from Aurora Freak there, because you look at these players, maybe, not considered good enough for the first team. That's fine. Very, very few are. When you're playing at Arsenal's level, that, very few can do what Ethan has done, what Miles has done, those sort of players. But you do want to try and make some money out of these players. And when you look at Nathan Butler-Adeji, you look at, Kayan Edwards, there was a lot of excitement about Kayan Edwards not too long ago. That, Salah, for example, players who we've seen have got something about them. It does feel like Arsenal lack in that area and have lacked in that area for some times. And the sort of worrying thing for me is, I'm trying to use the example like Amari Hutchinson, obviously, who was at Arsenal, decided himself to go to Chelsea, went to Chelsea. Chelsea loaned him out to Ipswich, had a really good loan spell. Then they got 25 million from him a year later. Obviously, Arsenal got some money back on that from the sell-on clause. But that's kind of how you look at how you can make money, players who potentially might not make it in terms of your first team, but you can make money if you use the loan system really, really well and it works. Obviously, it doesn't always happen. You can't always use the loan system. It doesn't always work. Players go on loan and it's not a success. But that sort of Murray Hutchinson was a classic case of it being a success. And my concern is, with all of these players going, you kind of look at the under-21s team or set up next year, and it's very, very light. There's not many under-21s players who can really play in that team. So it's going to be a very young team, because you're going to have to play a lot of under-18s in that side. And the players who are still going to be here, like Michael Rosiak, who's one of the players who Arsenal confirmed they're in contract talks with, rather than being released, they're still in contract talks with, trying to get him to stay. Players like him of his quality, who really probably now should be going out, looking to go out on loan and potentially getting a good move, getting really good experience. It's a struggle to see him unless Arsenal really recruit heavily. And they do want to recruit at academy level this summer, but they're going to have to recruit really heavily, I think, to sort of stock up the numbers to be able to be in a position where they can loan out some of those sort of older guys, and they're not going to have to be used in the 23s just to make up the numbers. So it's an area I think Arsenal do need to work on. And whenever you talk to people at Arsenal, they're always very, very keen to say that they are working on it, and they want to change that and they want to utilise the loan system better than they already do. And I think it is definitely an area, because you look at some of those, and it is very difficult to think, should have made some money out of those players. Maybe not huge amounts of money, but you need to be turning some revenue, some profit from these academy players who don't quite make it. And I think when you look at that list, there are definitely sort of 5 names that stand out there where you could think maybe if their sort of career path had been set out a little bit better. Some of them go on loan and they don't succeed. Like Nathan Butler at age, he did go on loan and it didn't work out. So it's not with every single player, but I still think it's an area where Arsenal do have to look on. So in that released list that they put out yesterday, as well as Rosiak, they confirmed that Chloe Kelly, obviously with the women's team, and Thomas Partey are still in contract discussions over new deals. So that hasn't been officially announced yet whether they're going to go or whether they're going to stay. And contract talks are ongoing, as we know with Partey, for example. So yeah, that's the list anyway of the players. Lots of players have gone. Kieran Tierney gave a really nice sort of message yesterday. It was recorded after the Southampton game. The Arsenal boys put it out on the website yesterday, talking about, he said it was, it's a sad goodbye, but a nice goodbye. And he talked about his love for the club and really appreciate a nice message sent out to the fans there for the support that they've given him over the years as well. So if you haven't seen that, haven't seen the video, haven't read it yet, it's on arsenal.com. I do urge you to go over and have a look at it. It's really nice words from Kieran Tierney as his exit has been confirmed. Right, just moving on now. Viktor Gyokeres, obviously it's the internationals at the moment. He dropped out of the Swedish squad because of what was described as a minor injury. And obviously that sent sort of social media into a bit of a meltdown. Like, oh, there's a transfer on the cards, that's why he's dropped out, or he's saving it. There was suggestions that he's pulled out because he doesn't want to get himself injured before a big move this summer. Now, Jean Dahl Thomason, who I had no idea, by the way, was the Sweden manager until I saw this quote. I'm surprised he's Swedish manager as well, because he's Danish, isn't he, Jean Dahl Thomason? Obviously Premier League, classic Premier League, old school era player. But he was asked about the rumours that Gyokeres had pulled out because he was trying to protect himself ahead of the transfer window, and he very much denied it. He said no, he felt a small injury and our medical team was already aware of it, and we decided together to release him. I spoke to Viktor last week. He hasn't trained much in the last few weeks and was feeling some discomfort because of a small injury. I was happy to see him and have him with us in the training camp. It says a lot about Viktor, how much he wanted to get involved. So Jean Dahl Thomason very much pouring cold water on the suggestions that Gyokeres pulled out of the Swedish squad because a move was potentially close, or that he was protecting himself from a move. Myself and Sam and Sai, we spoke about that, the sort of striker situation a lot, and Gyokeres and everything in the Arsenal press pass show, which went live yesterday for Inside Arsenal members. Had lots of people sign up yesterday. Thank you very much for that, which is always really appreciated. You watch the Arsenal press pass show every week, exclusive to the Inside Arsenal Patreon members. The link is down below for that. Elsewhere, bits and pieces to cover. David Raya, third in the Arsenal Player of the Season vote. That was announced yesterday. Not surprising at all. I think I had him third in my. I'm trying to remember what the top 3 I picked with James last week in Inside Arsenal Extra Time. I think it was Raya, Timber. It might have been Timber, Raya, Gabriel. I can't remember. I'm sure Raya was in my top 3. I had Gabriel number 1. I wonder who number 2 and 1. I think Declan Rice will be in the top 2. He's not mine. But I think he might make it. I think his form in the latter half of the season might see him sneak into the sort of popular vote into the top 2. I think Gabriel and him might well make up that top 2. But David Raya deservedly gets some recognition for what was a fantastic individual season from him. Anyway, he finishes third. Right, on some comments and questions from you guys now before we wrap this one up. I thought this was really interesting. This was in relation to the Zubimendi sort of radio interview he gave, and I thought this was really good clarification from David here, who'd watched and listened to it, and he was talking about the sort of translation, how some of the quotes have been lost. I do think Zubimendi's getting some unfair flack at the moment from Arsenal fans over, oh, he wants Madrid. I've seen so many people saying it in my timeline, and I really don't think that's the case. You know, I can only reiterate what I've said the whole way through this, is that I think, and Arsenal are very confident that Zubimendi is going to sign for them. It's all agreed. It's all done and dusted. It's just a case of waiting for the medical to be done. He's on international duty at the moment. Arsenal are very calm about the situation. And I think just the longer it goes before it's confirmed, it seems like Zubimendi seems to be getting a lot of grief from Arsenal fans about it, which I just think is really unfair, because I don't think Arsenal are pushing for him to get this deal done really, really quickly. You know, they're quite happy with where they are, where the deal is, what's been agreed, what's been signed, and they're just waiting for the medical to come through for it all to be finalised. And they're very, very calm about this situation. But I think he seems to be getting a lot of unfair flack. Like, oh, he's mugging us off. He's waiting for Madrid. And I really don't think that is the case. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But I really don't think that is the case. So I don't think you need to be really thinking negative thoughts on Martin Zubimendi at this point. But yeah, David has sort of clarified here the interview, which I think is really important to share. He said, just watch the interview with Spanish radio. Specific to those quotes, here is some lost in translation bits that have been reordered in the press. For a little bit of extra context, when he said he doesn't like to talk about hypotheticals, the question he was replying to is, so I'll put it to you directly. If Xavi Alonso called you and said, hey, Martin, I want you to be captain of the project at Real Madrid, would you join him? Right, because you know him, he coached you. And Martin replied, well, I've always said he was my idol when I was very lucky to have him as a coach in the youth team. That led to me getting to the first team. But I don't like to talk about hypotheticals. I talk in realities. And this type of talk, when on international duty, is disrespectful to the team and in such a tournament. David then continues saying, the article continued to say that no one can talk to Zubimendi about transfers whilst on international duty, and they include quotes from Mourinho and Zubi saying that he doesn't intend to convince him or oblige him to make a decision because he's mature enough to take his own decision in his own life, but that they are very close. He appreciates him, and if he ever needed any advice, he would be there for him. He says he knows exactly what he needs to do next. He also says he's a player that would fit well in any team, but at Sociedad, he did fit like a glove. So yeah, good context, I thought, from David there on that interview and on how some of the sort of reporting around it has been. Always good to get that sort of context on it. And I think that's really, really important to read. Like I said, I just think some of the things I'm seeing at the moment on Zubimendi is just pretty unfair on him. Alex has got in touch on the Patreon message board and asked me, hi, Charles, Jack Grealish being left out of the Club World Cup squad for Man City is a clear sign they want rid of him. Do you think Arsenal should explore that? Only 2 years ago, he was a major part in the treble winning season. No, I don't. Look, I think Grealish, when he's on it, has been a fantastic player. I think Grealish is going to be a little bit emotionally scarred from the last year or so with Manchester City. I don't think he looks great whenever I see him on or off the pitch at the moment. I wonder what's going on sort of behind the scenes or in Grealish's head at the moment. I don't really want a sort of project signing of a player who's sort of lost his way a little bit at another top club that you're bringing in to try and rebuild his character and his mindset and all that sort of stuff. I'd rather leave that for another club, I have to say. So, and you're not the only one who's asked me about this. I've had quite a few questions in the comments about it as well across my various channels. And no, it's just not one for me. It wouldn't be one that I'd be very keen on. Look, I hope he goes somewhere, finds his spark again, and sort of gets back to the sort of player that we've seen and know that he can be. But I don't really want to see Arsenal taking on that issue, if you see what I mean. Not for me. Padawan has got in touch on the Inside Arsenal Discord, which you get access to as a Patreon member. Says, hi, Charles. I wonder if the expectations of Berta in this window are just unrealistic, regardless of how he likes to operate or is allowed to operate by the club. This is his first window. It's sort of by definition going to be at the least organised of his tenure at the club. Those who are expecting us to move quickly and have all our ducks in a row by the first week of June just seem to be setting themselves up for disappointment. I get it, and I'm feeling some of it too, but the impatience is largely based on what happened in the past, not the present. The first point at which can be reasonably annoyed at a lack of progress is when pre-season actually starts. Anything before that is just noise, really. I kind of agree. I understand the frustration that it's a transfer window. We all want deals done early. I don't know about the expectations of Berta in this window being unrealistic. He has been here for a few months, and he's so experienced. He knows what it takes to get deals done and to get deals wrapped up. And I think, from what I understand anyway, Berta is doing a job that is seen so far as being seen as very, very positive. Speaking of people who are involved in contract renewals, for example, he's made a big impression on that side of thing. What he's done with Gabriel deal, getting that basically done already, I think is really, really good. It shines him in a very good light. Other contract talks that are going on, again, sort of speaking to people sort of in and around that, they've been really impressed with the way he's taken that on and how he's sort of struck up, good rapport with everyone involved in those deals. So I take that as a positive sign. I think what he's doing as well, from the sort of outside looking in terms of the striker situation, is getting everything in order to be ready so that when they do sort of decide one way or the other, they know exactly what it takes and they can hopefully sort of swoop in and get those done quickly because everything is in line. That's kind of how I view it. So I don't know. The expectations of him, are they unrealistic? I think it's unrealistic to think he's going to come in and really sort of put his mark on this window from his own point of view in terms of players and stuff like that. I think that's unrealistic because everything had already been kind of set in stone before he even arrived. But I think the expectations of him being able to close these deals, I don't think that's unrealistic because that's why he was brought in. That's his job. Arsenal know there's a sort of group of players, obviously, who they'll know who they really sort of want and target. Obviously, they've got to whittle that down. But I don't think it's unrealistic to think he needs to close those deals because that's exactly what he's been brought in to do because he's so experienced at that. And so I'm not sure expectations are unrealistic from that point of view. Joseph got in touch quickly and said, any idea who takes the 3 shirt now that Tierney's gone? No, like I said, Lewis Skelly isn't going to take it. He didn't want it. He wanted 49. He wanted to stick with 49. He really appreciates that number and what it means and what it represents to Arsenal. So he was keen to keep that. As I said, I don't think anyone else is changing numbers now. I said at the time when I got the news that Raya and Ethan were the only 2 changing numbers. Anyone else who comes in and takes numbers, it's going to be new signings. So, we'll have to wait and see. But I don't think it'll be any of the current squad taking the number 3. And that's it from me today, everyone. Well, not today, because I'm back with Inside Arsenal Extra Time a little bit later on today. But that's it for this morning's show. Anyway, thank you for joining me. Appreciate it as always. And be sure to keep an eye out later on for Inside Arsenal Extra Time coming with James Benge very, very soon. Speak to you soon, everyone. Bye-bye.